Well, willingness you can think of as non-resistance. And I say it's 90% of it because the truth is like the sun that's shining. You could say the truth of our alignment is like the sun that's shining behind the cloud cover of our false beliefs and wounded expectations and contradictions. It's like we clear that stuff away and the sun is there. There's nothing you have to do to put the sun there. It's already shining. It's already there. So it's the same idea. It's what is it that eliminates all of the stuff that's in the way of feeling the warmth of the sun and seeing the light in both senses. What's in the way is the mind, and particularly the tendency of the mind to jump into the drama triangle, obliterate all boundaries, and move into a state of drama and resistance, which is why it's called the drama triangle. It's like that's where all that the mind loves that stuff. It revels in drama. It revels in resistance, and being against something and overcoming and defeating something. It's like so important to the mind body self to win, to defeat the other, to be the best, to America first. It's a sort of a puerile belief that creates a lot of suffering. And if you just, this is what I was saying pretty consistently this hour, if you just refrain from doing that stuff, then the sun is shining. So alignment just sort of comes forward. There's nothing you have to do to create alignment. The alignment is a function of truth. It's just what is. And so if we just, it's just like if I asked you, like say you have a radio blaring, loud music, and you're interested in hearing the birds outside. You can't hear them because of the radio. So if you just turn off the radio, suddenly you hear the birds. There's nothing you had to do. The birds are there. They're singing. Where are you? You're being blasted by this radio so that you can't, so that the truth of what you want can't reach you. It's like having filters and screens that are always in the way. And by simply disengaging from that, which in our terms really means disidentifying with that version of you that's invested or immersed in those payoffs of contradiction and false opinion, by simply disidentifying with that, you're pretty much home. I mean, that's pretty much the discovery of your alignment. And what does that? What allows that to happen? It's willingness. The willingness to, it's just a kind of softness that moves with things rather than against them. So that's why I say it's not done in the mind, because you're not going to find much of that willingness in the mind. The body is much more willing, to sort of come along and release things and appropriate other things, like appropriate the body's sense of alignment. And sometimes people can do that. Sometimes they don't have access to that feeling because it's too charged and they're too immersed in the payoff of whatever contradiction you're looking at in the session. If they're too invested in it and it's too charged, then they may not even be willing to let themselves feel what it would feel like to be the one that they would like to be. Like if I'm too intimidated or contradictions and false opinions are almost always fear-based. So if there's too much fear, if it's too charged, or like if it's linked to trauma in the belief system or something like that, they may not even have, the willingness may not be there to appropriate the body's sense of alignment. Like, what would it feel like to be with somebody, in a happy, loving relationship? And they can't feel it. They just won't go there. It's not safe. And the belief, they're really holding on to that contradiction. If that's going on, then you have to work with it in other ways. You have to kind of, it's the same idea for the counselor. You have to work with it, not just charge in willfully to try to uproot it or something. It won't work. You push creates pushback. So you find ways to sort of make an end run around whatever is blocked there, whatever is not accessible. But you don't find much that willingness in the mind. It's very resistant by nature. It likes to be against things. It likes to complain. It likes to make wrong. But the body is more willing, provided that the issue is not so charged that the person has no access to it. If that's the case, then I think some help is required, some form of support is needed to move through that. But for a lot of people, that's not necessary. And if they just ask the right question, they'll have that moment of recollection where they, the clouds part and there's the sun. I know a lot of people who have experienced that. And it wasn't even a process. The moment they saw through what they were doing and how they were co-creating their suffering, The moment they saw it for what it was like, I'm done. No more. That's it. Just like throwing a switch. I've seen it many times, and it's always remarkable. It's like the person reincarnates right in front of you into alignment. So that's very possible. I mean, the truth is always available to us. Think of it the way Socrates talked about it, as we gain access to the truth through an act of recollection. So I think of recollection as just riding on a wave of willingness. If you're willing, it's like you have this knowledge. You may not have conscious access to it. You may not be consciously aware of what it is you, quote, know, but you can. You can have access to it. You can know what you know if you're willing to. It's just, it all comes down to willingness.